He is a guru in financial aid, okay? So we're really lucky to have him here to talk to you guys. Please sit, listen, and there's going to be a Q&A session, okay? Then after that, Gunnery Sergeant Yajama is going to be here from the Marine Corps to talk to you guys about different opportunities through the military. And then you guys are going to go to lunch. Okay, but listen up. On your way to lunch, I hope everybody still has their stamp cards. On your way out to lunch, there's going to be an adult at the door signing the bottom, okay? And that's your ticket to saying that you came here and that you went to the college fair. Okay, any questions about that? Okay, please welcome Nick Dykes.
Good morning, everybody. Feels good to be back on a high school theater stage. This room smells like the exact same room in my high school where so I'm here to talk to you about financial aid, which is relevant to your future. Because if at any point you think you might want to go to college, this information is going to be relevant to you. If at any point somebody you know and love might go to college, this information is going to be useful to you and for them. And we're going to talk about different types of college, different ways to get in. I'm going to give you some examples about the University of Oregon. We're going to talk about what it actually costs, how you get financial aid, what you can do right now to prepare, and why we're here in the first place. So let's first of all talk about financial aid. College costs money. It costs sometimes a lot of money. It depends on what your choice is, and we're going to talk about the different costs of different college options. But the first thing to know is that there is aid out there, money to help you go to college, and it's going to reward you for your work in high school or after high school, and it's also going to level the playing field. And by that what I mean is that if you have low financial resources, if your family's struggling, for example, you will find that there is more financial aid available to you. And it's going to help level that playing field so that if you deserve to go to college, you can go to college. And that's what financial aid is all about. So the first thing that we're going to talk about is what it actually costs. And I want to do a little survey out there. Raise some hands. What are some things that you have to pay for if you want to go to college? In the yellow.
Books.
Books, absolutely. Yep, up here.
Board.
Board, what do you mean by board? Housing, heat, stuff like that, like you're living, okay? Yes.
Food.
Food, yeah.
Classes.
Classes, tuition, yes.
Transport.
Transportation, yeah, you all have a really good grasp of what kind of things to be thinking about. Because there's direct costs, things that the university or the college is actually going to charge you for, and that's your classes, and if you're living on campus, what it costs to live on campus. But there's also just all those things that support your life as a student. So there's books and supplies, there's maybe a computer, maybe it's a bus pass or something like that. And you can get financial aid to help you pay for all of these things. Okay? So these go into your cost of attendance. And if you think you might want to go to a particular college, let's say you're interested in going to LCC, Lane Community College, you can go to their website and you can see what they think is the estimated cost of attendance to go there for a year. And you can compare that from school to school and get a little bit of an idea of what they're asking for. Now, when we talk about costs, the first thing you're going to notice is that the sticker price looks outrageous. Okay? The first thing that I want you to take away from this is that you will not pay the sticker price. You won't. And you're also noticing that there are differences based on different types of colleges. So what we're looking at here is average costs for your tuition and fees, your room and board, right, direct costs, in Oregon. And this is the most recent information available. Now, there's some pretty big differences, right, based on these three options. Can anybody venture some guesses as to why one of these might be more expensive than the other?
Better education.
Sure, maybe. Better education, higher quality instruction, is that what you're thinking about?
Yeah.
Okay? What else? Yeah.
Like universities have more like to offer, like they might have a big library, they might have things you can check out, and just like lots of helpful things for you.
Yeah, a lot of support, a lot of library resources to support you in your coursework. Yes.
Smaller class sizes.
Smaller class sizes. That's something that you probably are especially going to see with a private university. Sometimes they have smaller class sizes. Yes.
Oh gosh.
That's all right. We can come back to you.
That's all right.
Yes.
More up-to-date equipment.
More up-to-date equipment. Better technology, potentially. Okay. So you're going to find that there's a really big difference between a 2-year and a 4-year school. What kind of degree might you get at a 2-year school?
Associates.
Associates, nice. What other kind of certifications might you get at a 2-year school? Any idea? Yes?
Trade.
Yep, like a trade certification. So that would be a reason to go to a place like Lane Community College if one of those is your goal. Or if, for example, you want to get an associate's degree on the way to a 4-year degree, and what's that called, a 4-year degree? A bachelor's degree, yeah. So a 2-year college can be a stepping stone to a 4-year college. If you've ever been to University of Oregon, if you've ever been to LCC, you're going to see some differences, right, in the facilities just right off the bat. But if you were to go into the buildings, that's where you would really notice why it costs a bit more. There's all kinds of high technology. You can study abroad, so you can study pretty much in any country around the world that's safe. You can go into a submarine out on the coast. I mean, there's all sorts of opportunities to not just like be in the classroom, but to really engage. And the other thing that's cool is that you're basically at a 4-year college, like U of O. You would be taking classes from the people who are writing the book, not just, teaching the book. And you can actually be doing research with them. So you can help them write the book or help them do the research that makes that happen. So you might be thinking that's not me, but you'd be surprised at the kind of stories that I hear about students who didn't think they could afford to go to a 4-year university, didn't think they had the grades. They got in, they got the financial aid, they got there, and within the first year or two, they were doing research in a lab. It changed their entire life, right? It opened up the doors of opportunity. Private universities are going to look a lot more expensive right off the bat, but they also tend to have more financial aid. So the more expensive the sticker price, the more financial aid available, generally speaking. All right. So can anybody tell me the name of the main application for need-based financial aid?
FAFSA.
FAFSA. Cool. All right, if anybody can tell me what the first F in FAFSA stands for.
Free.
All right. Free, yes. I was going to offer a prize, but I wasn't paying attention to who said free. So there'll be prizes later, don't worry. Free. So the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid. Raise your hand if you've done the FAFSA. Nice, good. Okay, if you think there's any chance you might want to go to college next year, do the FAFSA now. It's open, it's available. A lot of schools have a priority deadline, so at U of O it's March 1st. We want you to get your FAFSA done between now and then, and you get to crack at the most and the best financial aid if you do it in that time frame. Okay? So it's the free application for federal student aid. So you don't have to pay for this. It's not like taxes. It's actually really easy to do. So anybody who's done it, can you just yell out, how long do you think it took you?
20 minutes.
20 minutes? Way longer?
An hour.
An hour?
45 minutes.
So 5 minutes?
45.
45 minutes?
Depends on who your parents are.
Depends on, if your parents know what the questions are asking, or if you had someone there to help. So it can take, on average, about half an hour. And it's really easy. So you might have to kind of puzzle out, what are they asking me here? But there's a lot of help on the FAFSA. There's 24/7 phone help, and of course people like me are available to assist you as well. And the whole point of doing the FAFSA is to look at your family's ability to pay. How many people are in the household? What's the income? How many people are going to college right now? And that's going to show the schools that you're interested in going to what you and your family can contribute, if anything. Right? That information gets passed on to the schools to give you financial aid. You can do this online. You can do it on the My Student Aid app. My one caution about doing it on the app is that this is like a legal document, super important, so you want to make sure that you're being just as careful as you would be if you do it on a computer or something with one shoulder. So one of the great things about the FAFSA is that it tells you right away if you're going to be getting some need-based financial aid. So it's going to show you, hey, we think you're going to get this federal Pell Grant. Now, can anybody tell me, do you have to pay back a grant? Yes or no? No. It's free money. It's what we call gift aid. What about a loan? Do you have to pay that back?
Yes.
Yes. So you could potentially get grants, you could potentially get loans from the federal government. These are kind of some of the initial things it's going to tell you. And I didn't blow it up, but down here it also has this number that's called an expected family contribution, or EFC. This is really key information. So once you have that number, you can go to any college or university you're interested in, or you go to their aid office and say, hey, my EFC is 0, right? Family can't pay nada. So then the school could tell you what kind of additional financial aid you could get because of that expected family contribution. So it really starts to be the bridge between those sticker costs I showed you, right? And what kind of financial aid you're going to get to bring that cost down to something that actually is reasonable. Okay, so the FAFSA is the free application for federal student aid, right? So you have to be a U.S. citizen or a permanent resident to do the FAFSA. If that is not you, if you're a dreamer, if you're DACA, you can do what's called the ORSA, the Oregon Student Aid Application. You can't get federal financial aid, but you can get aid from the state of Oregon, and you can get aid from universities in Oregon. Same time frame, opens October 1st. Our priority filing deadline is March 1st, OregonStudentAid.gov. Again, it determines your family's level of financial need and ability to pay. If you think you might want to go to a private college, you might have to do the CSS profile. It's just another application. There's only 2 colleges in Oregon that require it. Okay, so once you do one of those applications, again, totally free, relatively quick, you're going to start getting some emails. And I know I don't check my email all that often, and there's just kind of a cascade of emails coming in, junk mail every day. So I would recommend that you set up an email account just for school, or that you set up a notification on your phone, or something like that, so that you don't miss any critical emails. Because if you miss an email, it could be the difference between $0 in grant aid or $10,000 in grant aid, right? If you miss a key deadline. So it makes all the difference, and email is still the main communication method for all this stuff. So you're going to hear from the FAFSA folks saying it's done, it's sent to your school, or the schools you're interested in. You're also going to get some contact from the state. OSAC is the Office of Student Access and Completion, and they're going to prompt you to apply for state scholarships. I'm going to talk about that more in a second. And then you're going to be getting emails from the schools, and they're going to say, hey, we had this question about what's on your FAFSA. People really worry about doing the FAFSA wrong. Most things, the school will catch if there's a real problem. And they'll say, hey, this didn't really make sense. You said that there's 7 people in the household and nobody makes any money. Oh, how are you eating? Those kinds of things we will question and help you clarify so you get the right amount of financial aid from the beginning. Okay. And then you're going to start getting financial aid offers in the springtime. Usually you're going to have about a month and a half on this traditional schedule to say, okay, I know where I got in, I know what financial aid I have, who's giving me a good deal? And I recommend that you wait until that moment to really commit, mentally, emotionally, because you want to make sure that the university wants you, or the college wants you, just as much as you want them. You want to make sure that it actually makes sense, right? And that it's a good financial decision. All right. So let's talk about what kinds of aid are out there. And I want to start with one that you can work on right now. You don't even have to do the FAFSA. Your little brother, little sister could be doing it too. What is a type of financial aid that is always worth working on? It's a little bit of a trick question. Savings, thank you. Cool. So it's not just like, hey, put this in the bank account. If you save specifically for college, there are some serious benefits. So this is something you can do at any time. You could use these accounts like the month before you pay your college bill and still get the benefits. So a 529 plan, very memorable name, right? 529. It's a state savings plan. And you can put in $25 a month, if your folks have it, right? Or if you have it, $25 a month. It grows interest over time, so the longer it sits in the account, the more money, extra money it gains. So if you put $25 in, maybe it's $40 by the time you go to college. And, critically, you and your parents don't ever pay taxes on that money. No federal taxes, no state taxes if you do it through the state of Oregon. Definitely worth your time and effort. If you are in a low-income family, you can do an IDA, which is called an Individual Development Account. And it's basically an account that helps families with low resources build resources so that they're not stuck in the hole and without options, right? So it's similar to a 529. If you commit to putting in $20 a month, it'll get matched. Maybe it starts as $40, right? You put in 20, they put in 20, starts as 40. Grows interest. So maybe by the time you go to college, that initial $20 is worth 60. And you can imagine what that'll do for your ability to pay for college if you're doing that every month. If you think an individual development account might be for you, just type Oregon IDA into a search engine. And also, so you know, this can be done for a business, if you're interested in starting a business, or to buy a house, right? Individual development account. Now, what's the type of financial aid that you most think about? This is what I want to get so that college is free. Grants, scholarships, yep. And that's what we call gift aid, right? It's a present, nobody's gonna ask for it back. Scholarships are a little different than grants in that they're usually a little less available. You might really have to stand out through an achievement, through a characteristic, something like that, through an essay. Grants are just kind of granted to everybody who meets the general criteria. So we're gonna talk about some examples of those. You can work to earn some of your financial aid. You can work on campus, for example. So if you're working at Jamba Juice at U of O, that's a great arrangement because you're really close to your classes. And that job will never require you to do something that compromises your ability to do your coursework first. So they can't schedule you over your final exam. They can't have you pull double shifts during, Black Friday or anything like that. And then there's loans. And loans aren't great, but depending on where you want to go, you might have to borrow loans. And some of those loans might be need-based. They might be subsidized, which means that the government pays the interest on the loan while you're in school. That's not a bad gig. Parents can borrow too, and they can help you. So I put this all out there so that you are kind of getting an idea of what kind of general types of financial aid are out there, and how when you put it all together, those crazy costs start to seem within reach. There are scholarships out there for all kinds of situations, and I bet that if you look at this list, you'll find something that speaks to you. You say, I bet I could apply for a scholarship about that, right? And there's all kinds of scholarships out there at the colleges, through the state. Talk with your guidance counselors here. I bet you they know all about scholarships, right? And also think about things you've been doing. Do you volunteer at your church? Do you take care of your little sibling? Do you have a job? There are scholarships out there for whatever you're doing that shows commitment, that shows achievement, that shows something unique about you, something you've invented, a unique voice. You all have it, right? So all you have to do, really, is start applying for scholarships as soon as possible. So in your senior year, right now, this is scholarship season. If you think you might go to college next year, this is a great time to start thinking about whether you might have whether you might have 2 hours a week to write a scholarship essay and send off an application. I spent about 4 hours on a scholarship application when I was in high school. I wrote an essay. I got a $1,000 scholarship. So that was $250 an hour. I have never made that since, right? So it's definitely worth your time. And the more scholarships you apply for, the more you will get. And all of this starts to be much more reasonable to think about actually paying for college. I talked about the Office of Student Access and Completion. That's your state grant agency. If you go to their website, OregonStudentAid.gov, you can apply for over 600 scholarships with one application. Definitely worth your time. And you can also go to this tool. If you don't know whether to do the FAFSA or the ORSA, you can go there and they can help you decide. So I'm going to give you some examples of scholarships that the University of Oregon offers, and specifically like how they work. Because you're going to find that wherever you're going, some of these are going to be automatic, some are going to require an additional application, they're going to be awarded based on different criteria. So, for example, our Summit and Apex scholarships. You would get that scholarship if you meet a certain GPA and a certain test score minimum. So you can, I've got some handouts over there on the little table behind the camera. So if you're interested in knowing what kind of GPA you would have to have or what kind of test score you would have to get a guaranteed scholarship, check that out. And it would be a scholarship for all 4 years. So that's what we would call an automatic merit scholarship. And if you're not sure if you qualify, one thing to note, if you're thinking about going to U of O especially, we'll take your test scores all the way through February 15th. So you can keep taking that test, you can take it next month, you know, as long as you get your test score in before February 15th, we will take your best GPA and your best test score by that date to determine if you get one of those automatic scholarships. There's a Diversity Excellence Scholarship. This one requires an additional application, and we're looking at a 3.0 minimum GPA, financial need, and an essay about what you will contribute to the University of Oregon in its diversity. STAM Scholarship Presidential, these are some very prestigious scholarships that deadlines are coming up, so definitely check those out if you think that might be you. And then there's just scholarships for all kinds of things. So if you want to, say, study in France, but like that airplane ticket is seeming way out of reach, right? You're like, well, we can barely pay for tuition, let alone that air ticket. Well, there will be some scholarships available to you to help make that happen, right? So you're kind of getting the theme that as long as you apply and you're aware of the deadlines, there's aid out there to help you. Okay, I want to spend some time focusing on a specific program at U of O that's really great, and there are other colleges in Oregon that have a program kind of like this too. So Pathway Oregon is an opportunity to get all 4 years of your tuition and fees covered. And you could get this if you have a 3.4 high school GPA, if you are eligible for the federal Pell Grant, which shows you had a high level of financial need when you did that FAFSA, and if you come straight to the University of Oregon. That's it. If you meet that criteria, and you get into the U of O, you will have your tuition and fees paid for all 4 years. And that leaves just housing to think about, books, right? The other costs we talked about. But if tuition goes up, you don't have to worry about it. The other great thing is that Pathway Oregon students have special academic advisors. And they're really not just academic advisors. They will help you with, you know, if you're feeling homesick, they'll help you find a job, an internship, so you can get some job experience before you hit the job market. They'll help you find friends. And students who are in this program basically have they graduate at a much higher rate. And if you think you might be interested in going to a 2-year college, so maybe you want to go to LCC, or you're not sure if you want to go to a 4-year college, there's aid to help you with that too. And Oregon Promise works on a similar way, right? You have to have at least a 2.5 GPA, and you have to enroll at least half time in a community college. You have to apply for it, and you have to have some financial need. But if you have those things, you don't have to worry about tuition at a community college either. So why are there all these resources out here to help you pay for college right off the bat? Any ideas? Going in as a freshman, yes?
So you don't start out with your adulthood in debt?
Uh-huh. Yep, good point. It's because the research shows that if you take some time off and you're not quite sure what you want to do, it's much harder to get started again. Much harder. And I used to work for a university where almost all of the students that we were serving were adults. And so I heard all kinds of stories about how they started college and they stopped out. Life happens. But But a lot of them also said, you know, I didn't know whether college was for me. I didn't think that I had enough support or I could afford it. And here I am, 45, and I'm the most knowledgeable person at my work. But I can't be a supervisor because I don't have a college degree. And now they're trying to get their college degree while they have kids to support as well, and you know, a lot more responsibilities. So these kinds of financial aid are here to help you give it a shot, right? To go to college right after high school. And if it's not right for you, move on. But this is going to open that opportunity so you get the chance to see if that's going to work for you. So we've talked about some of these things already. I really recommend that you know, when your folks ask you what happened in school today, that you say, hey, we talked about paying for college. Can we just have like a little conversation right now about whether that's something that's realistic for us as a family? You know, what can you pay? Parents? Is it all going to be on me, the student? You know, do we have a rich uncle? You know, these kinds of things, right? That really most families don't talk about. Families don't talk about money a lot. But it's really important to know what you're getting into so that it's a smart financial decision. If you're a senior, you've got to do that FAFSA as soon as possible. And you can also go to any website of a college or university you're interested in, and you can check out the net price calculator. You're going to put in some information about your family income, what your grades are like, and it's going to tell you what it thinks you might pay to go to that school. So you can start to really compare apples to apples. What does it actually cost? Okay, so this is the point where I get to ask if you have any questions, and I think Brittany has a bunch of prizes. There are buttons and there are stickers. So we'll go by raising hands. I want to say first of all that there are no dumb questions. I didn't know anything about this when I was in high school. There are no dumb questions, and the more you ask now, the less confusion there might be later. How are we doing on time?
Can we say 20, 11:20?
So 5 or 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hey guys, quiet down, please. Let people ask questions
Okay.
if they
There's a
have
question in the
them.
back. Yeah.
So if you were to go to a private school, would the books be more expensive than a regular public school?
It's a great question. Probably not. So at U of O, you can buy your books anywhere. There's a U of O bookstore, but you can also just get your books on Amazon. And you can, basically what would happen is that your financial aid would pay your bill, and then if there's still some financial aid left over to help you with books, that money gets sent to you to your bank account. And so then you can just buy books from wherever you want, wherever it's least expensive. And maybe you want to buy a used, or maybe you want to rent, or get an e-textbook so that it's much less expensive. It's possible that a private school will subsidize the cost of books to make it a little less expensive, but for the most part, there's just big publishers, just like any book publisher, and they set the price that's the same. Yes?
Would it be better to go to a community college for 2 years and then transfer over to a 4-year, or would it be better to just go to that 4-year directly?
Great question. From a financial perspective.
Yes.
Okay. So first thing to just say is that the best reason to do 2 years at a community college and then transfer would be your life choices, basically. Like if you don't know what you want to major in, if it feels like a 4-year university is too big right now, if you need to mostly work so that you can pay for your life while you're in school, and that kind of thing, maybe 2 years, a 2-year school is right for you from the start. But we've talked about some of these types of financial aid that are only available to you if you start as a freshman. So if, for example, if you're transferring from LCC to U of O, yes, you have saved on tuition for at least 2 years going to LCC because it's less expensive. But you don't have as much financial aid available to you when you do transfer to U of O. So it's not a very clear-cut thing. It's definitely worth talking to the financial aid offices at schools you're considering going to, and actually getting the best estimate you can of what it's going to cost, if that's your major deciding factor. Yeah, great question. Way in the back.
Do you have to live on campus as freshmen?
So at U of O, there is a live-on requirement. You can easily get exempted from that if you live nearby, so you all could be exempted from that. Some people, even if they live here, they want to live on campus. Why do you think that is? Easier to make friends.
Transportation.
Transportation is annoying. What else?
Closer to
Experience college life, work. So what we find is that students who live on campus really happier. They're closer to their classes. They get in a study rhythm. It's like if you're at home, you've got all the baggage of what the home situation's been like for you know. If you go to the place where everybody is in study mode, it's more likely that you're going to get in study mode too. There's professors that live in the residence halls. Academic advisors go and you can just like go grab a burrito and then ask a quick question to an academic advisor who's sitting right there. So there's things like this that are fun, that are really helpful, but it does cost money, right? So if it's just like, hey, this is not going to work financially, ask for an exemption to the live-on requirement. Yes.
How do you get connected to like a work study if that's what you want to do?
So the question is, how do you get connected to a work-study job? So work-study, as we talked about, is a type of financial aid. And the way it works is that when you earn your paycheck, that money came mostly from the federal government instead of from your employer. So for example, at U of O, if you want to work in the library doesn't have a lot of money coming in. They don't really have their own revenue source. So they rely heavily on that federal funding to be able to offer jobs to students, to work at the technology desk or file books or things like this. So if you have a high level of financial need, you might get offered work study at whatever college or university you apply to. And that'll just make it easier to get a job, but it's not the only way to get a job. And like at U of O, you can just go to our Career Center website, do a quick search. It's basically like Google, but it'll show you what jobs are available and if you need work study to get that job. Yes?
Would you recommend using used books instead of new?
Used books instead of new. It's definitely a lot less expensive. The there's a lot of different versions of textbooks out there, so it's important, I think, to try to get the one that the professor is using. Otherwise, it might be confusing if they say turn to page 52, and in the previous version that you have, the old one, it's on page 51, and now you're lost. So you just got to make sure you have the right version. But yeah, I always bought used. Sold them back at the end of the term if there was something I knew I wasn't gonna look at ever again. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay.
Does the scholarships that you guys are offering go through for trade schools as well?
Well, so some of these, like the Oregon Promise, right, was the one that I talked about that was for community colleges. This would totally work for the trades. So if you're going to a 2-year school in Oregon, this is still available to you. The federal aid that we talked about, the federal Pell Grant, the loans, those are available too. But then we also talked about some types of financial aid, like at U of O, that were merit-based and things like that. These are all specific to U of O. So each college or university is going to have some of their own financial aid programs too. You got federal, state, college or university, private organizations, right? You want a little piece from every pot, and that's how you pay for it. Yes?
How much does it cost to board at a college?
How much does it cost for what?
Board to live at a college?
For board. Okay, so at U of O, tuition is about $12,400 per year before financial aid, right? And the room and board is about the same. So the total direct cost for the year is estimated at about $24,000, right? Before financial aid is applied. There are less expensive options. So you can choose what kind of meal you want. I mean, if you want like your own room and you don't want to share with a roommate, you're going to pay extra. But when we put our budgets online, we assume you're going to share your room and have kind of a middle of the road option. Yes?
Could you elaborate on meal plans?
Sure. So I can speak to you about meal plans. I know them best. We have 2 different types of meal plans. So we have one where there's a dining commons where it's all you care to eat, and they do breakfast, lunch, and dinner. You can go any day of the week, and they've got pizza every day, and they've got a rotating special, and they've got salads and sandwiches every day, and hot chocolate, and that's the least expensive one, because they don't have really like anything fancy. It's very affordable. and it's all you care to eat. But if you want more options, if you want to be able to go to the place that has like a kind of like a deli counter, you know, where you like look in, they have like macaroni salads and like pre-made sandwiches and stuff. There's another dining commons that's like that, and you like take your number, and when they call your number, you can say, okay, I want that, that, and that, and they charge points. So this is the way that, you know, you go to the other dining commons, is that you say, okay, I choose to have 60 points per week. And then when you go to the counter to, you know, get your food, they say, okay, that'll be 5 points, and they deduct it from the amount per week. So you choose how many points you want per week. You want to just basically have enough to cover lunch or 3 meals a day. You get to choose. Does that answer your question?
Oh, sorry. We have time for 2 more questions.
Great, thank you.
I'd hand it over.
Yes.
How much does that set cost?
How much
Like
does what
for the meal
cost?
plans?
Well, so we put together the cost of room and board. So that's your housing and your meal plan, really. So I don't know exactly, but I can tell you that like the cost difference between the least expensive meal plan and the most expensive meal plan is like $3,000 a year, $2,000 a year. Yeah.
So when it comes to financial aid, and let's say your family doesn't really count for much, and they don't plan on paying as well, so then you're kind of trapped in this state where they counted on your family's money when they don't plan on paying.
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. Yeah, that's something that I hear often. So when you do the FAFSA or the ORSA, it's asking for your parents' financial information, like trying to determine what they can help contribute. And it's also asking about your financial information. So did you work a job, and if so, how much money was it? But they're not required to pay. Right? They do the FAFSA, it shows what they could pay, but they're not required to. If they refuse to, it can be difficult. It might mean more loans in your own name. If there's really a special circumstance too, then you definitely want to talk to the aid office at any school you're interested in and say, hey, this is a family situation, parents aren't supporting me, is there additional aid or is there some kind of special consideration I can get for my situation?
And just so you guys know, if it's okay with you, Nick, that you can hang around
Yes.
after Gunnery Sergeant Ujama goes for more questions, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine.
Chris, did you want to ask a question?
Last question?
So I'm going to college in California.
Uh-huh.
This FAFSA stuff, ORSA, would that also be okay for California's financial aid?
So if you want to go to school in a different state, the FAFSA is still your main application if you're a citizen or permanent resident. The ORSA is just for Oregon schools. And so that would be used to determine your need-based financial aid at any school you go to that's a public school. You might also have to do the CSS profile if you want to go to a private school. Yeah. So these are awesome questions. Thank you so much. There are a bunch of handouts over here, so if you want to just learn more about paying for college in general, or about U of O specifically, if you want to get some communications from U of O, if you're thinking, okay, this might be a good option for me, I want to make sure that I get notified about opportunities for scholarships and learning more and whatnot, there's a little postcard you can fill out there and you can just put it on the desk and make sure you get on the list.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.